America's military might.
This parade salutes our soldiers' remarkable strength and unbeatable spirit. You won't want to miss it.
Tune in for our live special coverage.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today: President Trump signing bills to overturn California's mandate, what he's saying about his relationship with Elon Musk, and a potential massive conflict in the Middle East. A passenger flight to London crashed on departure from an airport in India with 242 people on board. What do we know about the casualties and the investigation? Tensions flared outside hotels in the Los Angeles area as protesters confronted a rumored ICE presence. The protests followed reports of immigration raids across the city. The governors of New York, Illinois, and Minnesota were grilled by lawmakers on the impacts of their sanctuary state policies. NTD's Luis Martinez has the details. The Supreme Court unanimously clears the way for a family to sue the federal government. And RFK Jr. announces new members of the Vaccine Advisory Panel. Will this new panel bring better standards to vaccine evaluation? We discuss with an expert.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And now, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is holding a news conference in Los Angeles, and other officers are talking as of right now. Let's take a look.
Up with our operational teams with DHS, our help vary depending on what DHS needs, and they let us know moment by moment. We have significant tactical resources across the enterprise here throughout our 7-county AOR to assist and support these efforts. That said, we find ourselves defending operations from violent offenders. The FBI safeguards constitutionally protected rights. We investigate civil rights violations on a daily basis, but some activity keeps taking place among righteous protesters is not civil. It's violent. We're going to investigate allegations of violence, whether it's assault on law enforcement officers or civilians, looting, arson, doxing, or damage to public property. So please, I'm asking the community, do not put your life in jeopardy by hurting someone or destroying property. You will be held accountable by the FBI, and it's not worth it. I'd like to highlight 2 cases for you to show what the FBI's line of effort is in this overall DHS-led operation. Elpidio Reyna is a fugitive. He is wanted for the alleged assault of a federal officer in the city of Paramount in California on June 7th, 2025. Reyna allegedly threw rocks at law enforcement vehicles on Alondra Boulevard in Paramount and injured a federal officer. Reyna is 40 years old, weighs around 165 pounds, and is 5'7". Reyna has a tattoo on his left arm with the word Carmen on it. We have photos of him on display. Reyna will be caught, and when he is, he will face a statutory maximum penalty of 8 years in prison. This is such a priority for the United States government that there is a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to his arrest. Let me repeat that. $50,000 for information leading to his arrest. The second case I'd like to highlight is on a subject named Alejandro Oriana. Alejandro was providing masks and face shields to violent rioters throughout the week and was arrested by our SWAT teams this morning. With the success and appreciation and assistance from the United States Attorney's Office, that case is ongoing, but Ariana is in custody as we speak. If you have information or evidence of violent acts, please either call 1-800-CALL-FBI, visit tips.fbi.gov, or send images or video to our digital tip line at fbi.gov/LA Office Assault. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Chief Bovino, United States Border Patrol.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I'm Greg Bovino, Chief Patrol Agent of the El Centro Border Patrol Sector and Lead Federal Coordinator for Customs and Border Protection entities here in Los Angeles. Entities include U.S. Border Patrol, Office of Field Operations, and CBP Air and Marine. We have several hundred agents and officers here in Los Angeles right now as we speak. Our primary mission here in Los Angeles revolves around Title 8 United States Code. Let me say that again. Title 8 United States Code. Those are our immigration statutes. If you look behind us at these pictures on the wall, immigration's not a victimless crime. A lot of bad people, a lot of bad things are in our country now, including Los Angeles. For Customs and Border Protection, that's why we're here right now, is to remove those bad people and bad things, whether illegal aliens, drugs, or otherwise. We're here and we're not going away. Border Patrol, Office of Field Operations, and Air and Marine, you'll see us in Los Angeles. You'll continue to see us in Los Angeles, not going anywhere soon. As for the violence and the demonstrators, violence will not deter us, the CBP mission here in Los Angeles. I believe we saw that last Sunday night out at Paramount. We continued to conduct our patrols as we saw necessary in the middle of that riot. And we'll continue to do that from here on out. Our allied law enforcement agencies, many of whom you've already heard from, whether it's HSI, ERO, FBI, ATF, and all others, join with us as we conduct that Title 8 mission. Very historic. First time I've ever seen it in my almost 30-year career. It's actually breathtaking. Many millions of illegal aliens have passed across that border over the past several years. It's our job to get them out. And that's what we are going to do, and that's what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Cooper. I'm a Special Agent in Charge, ATF, LA Field Division. The Department of Justice will not be deterred from enforcing this nation's laws. ATF is on the ground doing what we do best, fighting violent crime and protecting our communities regardless of the environment around us. Our agents are trained to operate in high-threat, high-tension situations. When federal authorities move to execute court-authorized warrants, we support that mission with professionalism, precision, and resolve. ATF stands shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners in this whole of government approach. ATF stands also shoulder to shoulder, including to carry out our immigration enforcement mission. If a criminal threat intersects with that mission, we bring our full capacities to the table. Let's be clear, obstructing a lawful federal operation, especially through violence or threats, is not protective activity. It's a crime. And those who cross that line will be held to account. We don't get to pick and choose when to enforce the law. Our job is to uphold it, always. ATF will continue to pursue violent offenders, support our partners, and keep doing the hard work this public demands. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Saley, the United States Attorney for the Central District of California. On behalf of my office and the Department of Justice, I'm here to show our support and our collaboration with the Department of Homeland Security in their mission to protect the American people and to do immigration enforcement operations, specifically at targeted known criminals, which is the primary focus of most of our missions to date. I want to also thank the National Guard and the military. We had judicial warrants to do what we did on both Friday and Saturday. And the amount of resistance and organized agitators that showed up to try to impede us was overwhelming, and we're really grateful to the President for deploying the Guard, which allowed us to continue our mission undeterred, to enforce the law, and to keep our people and our buildings safe. And that's really important. And my office has been aggressive in bringing charges. We charged several people over the weekend who dared to assault our agents. They threw rocks, they threw stones, they were breaking up concrete. It was out of control and it was violent. And some people in the state of California have been conditioned to think that there's no consequences for criminal activity. And you know, That might be true for the state of California, but it's not true with the federal government. And we will bring charges and you will go to federal prison. This is the federal government. This is not the state government. As the president said, if you spit, we hit, and we'll hit you with a felony. And we're committed to that. We're continuing to conduct, we're looking at hundreds of suspects. We're collecting media, social media, videos. We'll be combing over that stuff for weeks and months with the FBI. And just because you think you got away with something over the weekend, think again. In a few months from now, you could get a knock at your door. So anyone who's thinking about showing up to these protests to commit violence, I really caution you to think again. It's not worth it. We charged 2 individuals yesterday with throwing Molotov cocktails at police officers. That is extremely dangerous and could lead to death. They're now looking at explosives charges charged by the federal government and more charges to come. So I just want to reiterate that we will be aggressive, we will be filing, and we will be swift in our deliverance of justice. And I want to thank our partners at the FBI and the ATF and DHS and all our agencies for their hard work. It has not been easy. They've been working around the clock, but they're undeterred. And I can tell you, speaking to them, they're more committed than ever to delivering on the promise of the president to make America safe again. And we need that in California probably more than anywhere else. So with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that, and everyone for their comments. And with that, we're going to open it up to questions, but we're going to keep it specifically to questions that pertain to this topic and some of the operations that are ongoing here in Los Angeles and how we will sustain and build on those operations in the future. So do you want to go first? Yes. Yes. You know, what I would say is that I'm not going to telegraph exact statistics and numbers and what we are doing as far as participation with the military, but we do have several thousand engaged here in Los Angeles right now. We are assessing this weekend's threat levels, not just here, but in cities across the country, and pre-deploying assets. So we're using every tool that we have in our toolbox and pre-staging people, task forces, special swift response teams, people with specific gifts and talents that they can contribute to areas that we think they may be needed this weekend, so that we can prevent any kind of violence from being perpetuated. You know, I would say the president has the right to utilize every authority that he has under the Constitution to utilize Title X and to bring in military assets and National Guard units as needed, and he'll continue to assess that and use his prerogative to decide when it's necessary. Yeah. You know, I think what I had talked was a conversation with the Department of Defense to ask them to use the authorities that they have in conjunction with the president to make sure that there's consequences for people who perpetuate violence. So that is what the assessment is, and they're being utilized to the fullest extent to which the president wishes to at this point in time. And I'm so thankful we have a U.S. attorney and a Department of Justice that is going out there prosecuting these crimes as well. That's something that was very different under the Biden administration. That is a game changer now. We have a president now that believes in the rule of law, and that is going to make sure that when people break the law, no matter who you are, that you will be prosecuted and you will be brought to justice. Yes, sir. Yes. Yep. You know, I'm not. Oh, you know what? I don't even know the senator. He did not request a meeting with me or to speak with me. So when I leave here, I'll have a conversation with him and visit and find out really what his concerns were. I think everybody in America would agree that that wasn't appropriate. That if you wanted to have a civil discussion, especially as a leader, a public official, that you would reach out and try to have a conversation. For instance, I have left voicemails for Governor Newsom wanting to have a conversation. Has he returned them? No. He hasn't. I know that the White House has reached out and had conversations with Mayor Bass as well. And so that's what you do to try to start these conversations and ask for partnerships. Unfortunately, we haven't met that in this area. I'll visit with the senator and find out really what his concerns are and what we can do. You know, what I would say is that we have over 1,500 people that we have been interdicting with, arresting for different situations, and we will continue to build on that. That's been just over the last few days. Know that we have more assets now today than we did yesterday. We had more yesterday than we did the day before, so we are only building momentum. This is only going to continue and be increased until we have peace on the streets of Los Angeles. The president has told me, Christy, use everything that we have to make sure that the citizens of Los Angeles know that we care about them, that they have lived with crime for far too long, and that we want them to be able to walk their children to school in the morning and feel safe. We want them to, small businesses downtown, to not have to worry about getting burned to the ground because some organized crime nonprofit funder is deciding that now is the time to send a political message or an agenda. So we're going to stay here and build our operations until we make sure that we liberate the city of Los Angeles. Yes, back there. I'm going to do two more if that's okay. Go ahead. Well, we literally have tens of thousands of targets. So I think that's what's more important. People should know that there are millions of people that are in this city illegally, and that we have, I would say, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of targets that we will be going after. Remember, this president has repeatedly said that he's going after criminals and the worst of the worst. And we're going after people that are in work sites that are trafficking drugs, that are trafficking human beings. We're DNA testing children, because many times when you see people claiming that their family members or the children they have with them that are theirs, many times when we DNA test them, they're not. They're really peddling our children, and they have human slavery going on, child trafficking, pedophilia. So we are going after those individuals that we have intelligence on, and we will continue to only build on that. And yes, I'm sorry to get to you right away. Well, there's a lot of rhetoric and there's a lot of false information and a lot of fake news. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would start covering the facts. And we'll get you all that information that we possibly can. Now, there may be people that because of the targets that we were out there arresting, that were with those individuals, they were collaterals that were spending time with them, and all those people will be vetted. And remembering, still in the United States, if you come into this country illegally, you have committed a crime. And so when you do that, we have to go through and follow the law and make sure that we're adjudicating that and dealing with that appropriately. So the president's targets and priorities are the criminals that have perpetuated violence, but also, once again, I'm going to remind everybody, you have the opportunity to self-deport. We will buy you a plane ticket. We will give you $1,000 when you land in your home country, or if you go home to Mexico, and then we will get you scheduled so that you can come back to this country legally. You will have the opportunity to come back to the United States of America. If you don't do that and you wait until we come and arrest you and have to remove you, you will never get the chance to come and live in the United States of America again. The president has been clear on this. So I'd encourage you to get on the CBP Home app, and you can self-deport today, and we will facilitate that. You can take your entire family with you, people and your loved ones, and we will facilitate you coming to this country correctly. Everybody has the opportunity to do that. If you wait until we have to arrest you, you will never get to be an American, much less live here and work here and be able to pursue the American dream. Last question. Yes. And remember, these are people. If they took the legal correct path, they would have come here legally. They wouldn't have come into our country illegally. Second of all, they have final removal orders. They have final removal orders, and we're following. It is actually under the acts that the president has invoked through his executive orders. It actually is a criminal offense. And so one of the things that we need to remember is that when you're going out there and talking about what is happening with individuals who are in this country illegally, is that they have the opportunity every single day to return back home. And we will work with them and facilitate that and work with their families. But if they choose to wait back and to not make that decision today, then they are subject to this type of operation that will target those that have criminal activity and backgrounds and perpetrators of violence first. Those are our targets. but we are going to make sure that we're bringing peace back to the city of Los Angeles. So my only question to you, I'd say a question back to you is, which laws in the United States should be enforced and which ones shouldn't? I mean, my job, here's the deal, guys. My job is not to pick and choose which laws we enforce and which ones we don't. We have laws in this country, and they matter. If you want the law changed, go to Congress. When's the last time you went to Capitol Hill and told your senator or representative to change it? That's what they need to do. This is the perfect time for Congress to make a decision on how they want people in this country to be able to have an opportunity to come here legally and to fix this. We, as law enforcement officers and as a national security department and agency, my job is to uphold the law, and that's what I will continue to do. Yes, sir, I'm going to finish with you. And I kind of like the Bass Pro hat, too, so I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go to you. So go ahead. Yes. Nope, these operations, I will say these operations have been much more difficult because of Los Angeles and California's sanctuary policies. SB 54 has been difficult for us, and we don't have the backup of your local law enforcement. That's put our officers in danger. In fact, even this morning, we had Highway Patrol that we were working with. I was talking to officers. They were so happy that we were here, and they were grateful that we were here interdicting with these criminals. And then the governor found out that I was here, and he pulled them off of me and told him to go back home and to not cooperate with us anymore. So if you don't think your governor's being political, he gets up every single day and the first hat he puts on is the political one, and then he makes a decision that's best for him and his family, and then he makes a decision that's best for what his future is, and then maybe 10 or 15 steps down the line, he'll decide what's best for his people. That's what your governor does. Next, I'm going to come to you.
And that was Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem holding a news conference amid LA protests and riots. So officials were saying that law enforcement will continue to uphold the law and protect the American people, and authorities will be aggressive and undeterred, reiterating that anyone who violates the law will be held accountable, saying that it's not worth it. And Noem also saying that they'll stay in LA until it is liberated. Now we shift to the plane crash in India. A Boeing 787 Dreamliner was headed to London when it went down after takeoff near the western city of Ahmedabad. There were 242 people on board. It's one of the deadliest air disasters in India's history. A 40-year-old British national appears to be the only survivor. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest, and just a warning, this report contains footage that some viewers may find disturbing.
Wreckage and debris scattered in Ahmedabad after a passenger jet crashed in western India. One local resident described the scene.
I was sitting at home. There was a loud noise. It felt like an earthquake. I came out and saw smoke. I did not know it was a plane crash. Once I came here, then I found out. I saw the crashed plane, many bodies lying.
A senior police officer provided an update on the emergency response.
The London-bound flight of Air India crashed here soon after its takeoff. For preliminary reports, we have learned there were 230 passengers on board, and the plane crashed at a doctor's hostel. The rescue agencies, firefighters, police, and civil administration reached the crash site within 2 to 3 minutes. The search and rescue operation is currently underway.
Air India said the flight included Indian, British, and Portuguese nationals, and one Canadian. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi posted on X, quote, "The tragedy in Ahmedabad has stunned and saddened us. It is heartbreaking beyond words. In this sad hour, my thoughts are with everyone affected by it. Have been in touch with ministers and authorities who are working to assist those affected." British Prime Minister Keir Starmer took to the platform as well, posting, quote, "The scenes emerging of a London-bound plane carrying many British nationals crashing in the Indian city of Ahmedabad are devastating. I am being kept updated as the situation develops, and my thoughts are with the passengers and their families at this deeply distressing time." Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the plane crash is Armin Kurdian, pilot and aviation expert and retired U.S. Navy captain. Good afternoon, Armin. So an initial report saying the pilot issued a Mayday call before contact was lost. Can you talk to us about what does that typically indicate?
Good afternoon, Don. Obviously, very tragic and sad circumstances for the people of India and the people of Great Britain. When you have time to make a call in the aircraft, It basically means you've gotten to the third step of basically your mantra. Aviate, number one, is to make sure the airplane is safe to fly and it stays airborne. Navigate, make sure you're going in the right direction and don't get lost. And then finally communicate, speaking outside of the plane and letting folks know what's actually happening. The fact that he had a Mayday call, and then when you couple that with the video, it looks like the aircraft is under control. And by that, I mean, it wasn't in some crazy configuration. It wasn't wing over. It wasn't just spiraling or tumbling out of the sky. It looks like he's actually making a concerted and deliberate, intentional effort to land the aircraft, even though he's going right into a residential neighborhood, which he was probably saying, look, I can't keep the airplane in the air anymore. He obviously could keep it in control, but not in the air, which to me tells me there was something wrong with the engines. He lost both engines because that aircraft can still fly on one engine. So obviously that black box is going to tell us pretty much everything we need to know.
So there's the video, right, showing the plane's nose pointing upwards before crashing. What does that mean?
So that is your standard kind of landing flare configuration, if you will. It's like you're basically coming down. As you land an aircraft, just any standard aircraft, as you're coming down, the pilot always pulls the nose up, several hundred feet off the ground, which acts to kind of slow the aircraft down, slows the rate of descent, continues to slow the aircraft forward velocity, and he times it just right so that the aircraft basically touches down at a speed of maybe 3 to 5 feet per second, and that's the impact that you feel. Carrier aircraft, will come down to about 15 feet per second. It's more of a controlled crash. But in this case, you can see he's coming down, and normally that flare happens right before you touch down, so it slows down. But what he was doing, he simply didn't have probably the forward velocity to continue on. Plus, with all the obstructions on the ground, he had to make a decision. Am I going to go down nose down first, or am I going to go down maybe tail first? And probably hoping that if I come down with my nose pointed down first, I'm going to kill everybody. Like bringing my tail down first, I might be able to save some of the people on the aircraft. When you're going into such a dense area with so many buildings, there's obviously going to be a fire. If this one individual, this British national, did actually survive, then that is truly an amazing miracle.
Okay, I'm just wondering here, what led to this, right? Because we know planes have many redundancies to prevent a single problem leading to this disaster. So there must have been multiple failures at certain points, right? Or could there be other possibilities?
Any kind of disaster like this is probably many things happening in a row that basically prevents the pilot from maintaining airborne control. If you look at Sully Sullenberger on the Hudson, he had a dual bird ingestion, massive amounts of seagulls going to both engines, shredded both engines. He had no way to keep the airplane airborne, but he was able to bring the aircraft into the river in a controlled fashion. Look at the Air Florida crash in the Potomac about 40 years ago. Icing on the wings, couldn't keep the airplane airborne. They basically came down, hit the bridge, and then crashed into the water. Any kind of situation where you lose control or you lose power is going to result in a catastrophic condition, but there are lots of backups. Like I mentioned, the Dreamliner is capable of flying on one engine. In fact, it's a requirement that any multi-engine commercial aircraft be able to maintain altitude and climb out with just one engine on a hot day. So like it's 90 degrees outside in humid air. Those things are tested in the Boeing, Airbus, whoever's building the commercial aircraft has to demonstrate that to the FAA for the aircraft to be certified to actually carry passengers.
So reports are saying that the pilot had around 8,200 hours of experience, and the co-pilot had much less, around 1,000 hours of experience. Is there something to be said there?
I don't know that necessarily there is. That's a lot of times air transport pilots have a lot more experience. I mean, we'll see when the black box actually shows up. But 8,200, it's maybe below average, but it probably just means he hasn't had as many flights. Maybe he was younger, so that doesn't really concern me. I mean, we've seen young pilots do amazing, smart things, and we've seen pilots with tens of thousands of hours of experience make mistakes. So it's really going to depend on they're going to look at the pilot's training, his curriculum. Was he up to date? Was he current? The co-pilot's the same thing. The flight attendants on board, they're going to go through the whole run of the maintenance on this aircraft and the crew history as well, to try to determine the causal factors of what happened. But as we saw with Sully Sullenberger, when you go into a massive flock of birds, there's nothing you can do about it, and no amount of training is going to stop that airplane from crashing the ground, but perhaps save the aircraft from catastrophe. Going into a neighborhood is just a terrible situation. I'm sure the pilot recognized what was about to happen, probably felt a sense of powerless, but you could see him, you could believe he's fighting, and he's trying to fly the aircraft all the way up until the end.
Okay, but typically speaking, these training programs, do they prepare pilots for emergencies like this that give them like literally seconds or minutes to act?
Absolutely. They'll go through, a situation, for example, where they're going through a takeoff run, they've passed their go speed, and then they have an engine fire alarm. When you're going past a certain go speed on the runway, you are going to go flying. You have to, even with an engine that's on fire, because otherwise you don't have enough room to stop, and you're going to run into something off the end of the air. So it's safer to actually go into the air than to stay on the ground. They'll go into hydraulic failures airborne, or an electrical failure where you have no electrical power, or communications failures. Is your internal crew resource management working properly? So see how you coordinate with your co-pilot, or vice versa, and make sure you're looking at all the right instruments and your scan pattern is correct. They run through a gamut of these types of emergencies, and not just when they first get certified to become an airline transport pilot, but on a regular continuing basis. There's a cadence that they have to go through these kinds of simulators and flight checks annually, biannually as necessary, as well as physiological, medical checks to make sure that they're healthy to actually go and fly. So it's very serious business. These pilots take these kinds of things very seriously. And just remember how many thousands upon thousands of commercial flights go on all over, probably tens of thousands on a daily basis. These types of things are extremely, extremely rare. In fact, the FAA has a standard that something like this might happen 1 out of every 10 to the 9th or 100 million flight hours. There might be a disaster like this. That tells you how rare they try to make this type of thing to happen.
Okay, Armin, real quick, I'll just squeeze in one more question. What are investigators going to be looking for to determine the cause of the crash, and how long do you think these type of things usually take?
They're going to start, one of the things they're going to look at primarily is engine power. When was engine power lost? Because obviously he wasn't able to keep the airplane airborne. The only other thought I might have is that he might have entered some kind of stall condition, or a compressor stall, where he simply got the airplane on the wrong side of the power curve and simply wasn't able to climb out because the aircraft attitude wasn't right. So they're going to look at that. They're going to look at oil pressure. Was gas or fuel still going into the engine? What were the control inputs going into the engines? What were the control inputs of the ailerons, the flaps, all of those positional settings all the way through? They're not going to have a whole lot of data to look at because that flight only lasted a couple of minutes.
Well, all right. Thank you very much for your time today, Armin.
Thanks, Don.
Coming up, RFK Jr. announces new members of the Vaccine Advisory Panel. Will this new panel bring better standards to vaccine evaluation? We discuss with an analyst after the break.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it.
Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you.
But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives. You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S. That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift. I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
And now a look at some changes at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has chosen 8 new members for the new panel that advises on the Agency on Vaccines. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on the new additions.
Health Secretary Kennedy says the changes to the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices have been a long time coming. He mentioned a congressional oversight investigation of the panel from 2003. He says the investigation found that 4 out of 5 members that added the rotavirus vaccine to the vaccine schedule had a direct financial interest in the vaccine.
In 1986, there were 11 vaccines on the schedule. Today, a compliant child must take between 69 and 92 vaccines to stay in school in some states.
Kennedy says not one of them has been safely tested in a pre-licensing placebo-controlled trial.
And that is just malpractice. So the people who were in charge of that are now gone.
An Epoch Times review of disclosures and payment information showed that 8 of the members whom Kennedy fired had been paid by pharmaceutical companies in the past. Most of the funding, but not all, came before the members joined the panel. On Monday, Kennedy notified the 17 previous members of their dismissals. The new members of the panel include Dr. Robert Malone, one of the original inventors of the mRNA tech used in the COVID vaccine. Malone was deplatformed from social media, accused of spreading disinformation for warning parents about potential risks for children taking COVID vaccines.
You can't repair heart tissue scarring. You can't repair a genetically reset immune system.
Another new member is Dr. Martin Kulldorff, a Swedish epidemiologist and biostatistician and former professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. In 2020, Kulldorff was a co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, which called for lifting COVID-19 restrictions on lower-risk groups to develop herd immunity through infection before vaccines became available. Another new addition is Retsef Levy, an MIT professor who was an author of a 2022 study that examined increased emergency heart events in people under 40 in Israel during the COVID vaccine rollout and third COVID-19 wave. All other new additions are also from the medical field. Kennedy says all of the new members are committed to evidence-based medicine, gold standard science, and common sense. The health secretary says his selections have each committed to demanding definitive safety and efficacy data before making any new vaccine recommendations. Some were critical of the move. Jason Prevelage, president of the American Academy of Physician Associates, called the step deeply damaging to confidence in vaccines. Meanwhile, Senators Bill Cassidy and Bernie Sanders also expressed concern about the decision. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss RFK Jr.'s new members of the Vaccine Advisory Panel is Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president, Brownstone Institute, and senior columnist at the Epoch Times. Jeffrey, so good afternoon. What are your thoughts on the decision to dismiss the entire panel all at once?
To do that to ACIP, a committee about whom most Americans had never heard anything until 2 days ago, amounts to a changing of the guard of an extremely powerful and influential body that determines how our children are medicated from a very, very early age. And when this happened, people wanted to know why, but very quickly videos were circulating from 2018 showing that they were rubber stamping vaccines that are actually highly controversial and mostly unnecessary for kids. So the people who came out and condemned it, including the AMA and all these professional associations, they have some explaining to do, because RFK was saying the members of this committee were conflicted, being paid by pharmaceutical companies. Sometimes they declared those conflicts, sometimes not. As you pointed out, Epoch has documented this very strongly. So all RFK is really trying to do is get independent scientists who know something about the products, their safety signals, and are highly competent in their respective areas to provide analysis that is not conflicted with pharmaceutical money. And he followed up his firing of the entire board, which is absolutely essential, with quickly hiring, choosing 8 new members. And it makes for a very impressive list. So far from having reduced confidence, I mean, Americans have already lost confidence in the vaccine industry as it is. This will help restore confidence in science and regulators that Americans can trust that the decisions being made at the top are at least not being done on behalf of industry and are being done by independent thinking scientists.
Okay, then what are your thoughts on some of the new appointees? The previous report mentioned Robert Malone and others as well. Your thoughts on them?
Oh, Malone is absolutely brilliant. I've had a lot of interactions with him over the years, and I never find the end of his depths of curiosity, his willingness to listen to the evidence. He's a voracious reader. He's a great team with his wife, Dr. Jill Malone, who is a senior fellow at Brownstone Institute. And both of them together make a tremendous team, very intellectually curious. They read everything. They're interested in everything. But he's a gifted scientist and a gifted speaker. And I think he'll be a very powerful voice on the committee. Another one that, in addition to Recep Levy over at MIT, who's a great biostatistician, and one of the few statistical technicians that actually understands public health also. Usually those things don't go together, but they do in a regulatory framework, but most statisticians don't even bother to look at public health. Recep Levy does. Another favorite in the mix is Martin Kulldorff, who has, of course, a signer of the Great Barrington Declaration, which people know about that. But what they don't remember is that Martin Kulldorff, who was at Harvard at the time, when Fauci took the J&J shot off the market because of safety signals, Martin complained about that and said it needs to stay on the market because the safety signals do not pertain to anybody over the age of 50, and nobody should be getting the shot under the age of 50 anyway. So he argued on behalf of the J&J vaccine. So he is not an anti-vaxxer, obviously, from his own personal record.
So you were talking about how trust has been eroded. Do you think with this move, trust will go back to where it was?
No. We're nowhere near that. But this is a good beginning. What's interesting about this move is it starts to reform the system at the highest levels. Where the real change needs to happen is within the scientific community itself, in universities and research labs and pharmaceutical companies. They're the people who need to be won over in the end in order to restore trust. And that's going to take a very long time. There are other structural reforms that Jay Bhattacharya at NIH is pursuing that can help in that process. One is to establish a new journal of replication studies that's going to redirect funding for scientists to actually check the work of other scientists. This is the kind of change we need. That will gradually have an effect on the scientific community, so we can come out of this period of corruption and a cartel system that's been corrupted by payoffs and worse, and get back to a situation where science is valued on its own terms and the old-fashioned sense of science, not the Fauci sense of science, but real science of independent looking for evidence to find means by which we can improve medicine and public health. That's what we really need to restore in order to restore public trust, but I think it's going to be a long time.
All right, so you've written related articles on the Epoch Times newspaper. How has the role of the state in public health evolved in the United States over the years?
Well, it's strange, and I've been looking into it more and more. Really, the change happened in World War II, and we saw this growing unity of military concerns and public health, and that began problems in the same way that you think about church and state in a unified form ends up corrupting both. It was the same way when medicine and when the military, the state, and public health got intertwined. That's when the problems really began and just grew worse and worse over the decades and culminated in the COVID period, where weird things were happening to our lives. We had to cancel weddings and funerals, and we couldn't go to church, and we couldn't go to the coffee shop, but we could go to the liquor store. We couldn't go to the gyms, but we could go to the weed shops. Small businesses were ruined. Our travel was restricted. So many odd things happened, including the social distancing mandates and the mask mandates and all this craziness, followed by a shot that they promised was going to get us out of the pandemic, but it didn't stop infection. It did not stop transmission. And quite frankly, it hurt a lot of people. It turns out that the mRNA form of the injection was far more dangerous than the J&J shot that they had already removed for safety signals. So all of this culminated just a couple of years ago. I mean, think about it, it wasn't that long ago. The lockdowns happened 5 years ago. But the truth about the shots, started emerging 4 years ago and then became undeniable 3 years ago. And only 2 years ago did we start to really come to terms with all the people who had been harmed by the shot itself. So we've seen a change of guard. That had to happen after this fiasco. And I think RFK has a lot of very good ideas on reforms that can be made. He's tapped some very impressive people like Kuldorf and Retzef and Malone and Bhattacharya and Macri at FDA and so many others. So it's a wonderful team, but they have so much work to do. And the odds are still very much against them because, like I say, we've got a lot of work to do at the level of the scientific journals, the professional associations, and so many other areas of the system have to be reformed. And I think it's going to take a lot of work. And our friends are working 16 hours a day to make it happen. But it's a really hard job to dig ourselves out of where we've been.
Yeah, it's a fascinating discussion, but that's our time today, Jeffrey. Thank you again for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Next, hundreds of workers who were fired from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are getting their jobs back. A spokesperson at the Department of Health and Human Services says more than 450 jobs will be reinstated. That's about 20% of the 2,400 CDC employees who were dismissed. The cuts were part of a massive reorganization in April. Some of the workers focused on HIV-led exposure and workplace safety. The HHS spokesperson didn't say why those jobs were reinstated or when those employees can expect to go back to work. Coming up, the Army's 250th anniversary is coming up this weekend, and the Army's parachute team has been practicing ahead of a planned jump into Washington, D.C. We hear from team members. That and more after the break.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
First time that when I see him, a lot of stuff came into my mind because I wasn't prepared at all. I know the first 3 months of his life were really important, and I wanted to be there all the time for him. First time he was like, "Daddy, Daddy." That was one of his first words. He grew up so quick. He just surprised me every day. He's really smart. I really think he can be an astronaut, president. But I'm gonna support him for wherever he wants to be. Whether he want to be a photographer, musician, whatever. As a father, I guess you don't focus on you. I put himself first. That's what a dad does.
A new civil rights lawsuit is putting race-based college funding under scrutiny. The state of Tennessee and the group Students for Fair Admissions filed a suit yesterday. They're challenging a federal program that awards funding to universities where Hispanic students make up at least 25% of enrollment. The lawsuit argues the program is unconstitutional. Congress approved over $350 million for it in 2024. Students for Fair Admissions is the same group behind the landmark Supreme Court case that struck down affirmative action in college admissions last year. The suit names the Department of Education and Secretary Linda McMahon as defendants. Tennessee officials say the policy forces schools to choose between losing federal funding or violating the state's new ban on race-based preferences in education. With the one-year mark yesterday before the 2026 FIFA World Cup, leaders presented the fan experience. New York and New Jersey held the waterside party. Local officials and fans celebrated against the backdrop of Ellis Island. The United States is set to co-host the finals along with Canada and Mexico. It's going to feature 48 teams and a record 104 matches. It's a tournament the FIFA boss said would usher in a new generation of soccer fans. He said last month after meeting Trump that he was confident the world would be welcomed in for the 2026 World Cup and this year's Club World Cup. But the task of reassuring international fans was complicated by a travel ban that went into effect on Monday. Iran is the only one that has qualified for the 2026 tournament so far of the 12 countries facing travel bans. The Army's 250th anniversary is coming this weekend, and preparations are underway. The U.S. Army Military District of Washington hosted a Twilight Tattoo Parade yesterday. The event featured a jump onto Summerall Field by the Golden Knights parachute team and a helicopter formation flying over. Let's take a look.
Attendees were also delighted by a live military performance by soldiers from the U.S. Army Military District of Washington's ceremonial units. The event was part of celebrations ahead of Saturday, when the Army marks its 250th anniversary. The celebration will coincide with President Trump's 79th birthday. It includes an Army birthday festival on the National Mall. After the parade, the Golden Knights will parachute in and present President Trump with a flag.
The easiest way to kind of describe it, we're in a sense meticulously crash our parachutes into each other and then build a formation from there. My crew partner will have a drop flag, which we will then secure to each other so that when we split the formation, both of us going side by side, we will have a drop flag in between the both of us. So there's a variety of different factors that can alter our plan. Obviously, everything that we do is safety conscious. We take in fact what the weather's doing, how strong the winds are, the cloud altitude, so that might actually alter the plan altogether.
The parachute team is expected to land in the ellipse, immediately south of the White House.
Urban jumps are a lot more difficult than your traditional out in the field or out on an airfield, because all those buildings actually block the wind and they actually affect how the wind swirls. It's very similar to how we jump into stadiums where the air isn't, or the wind isn't consistent at all. It creates a very challenging condition.
The U.S. Army is bringing 6,500 troops into Washington, along with 150 vehicles and 50 aircraft for the celebration. The celebration will end with an enlistment and re-enlistment ceremony, a parachute demonstration by the Golden Knights, and fireworks.
And join us for a live special coverage of the U.S. Army's 250th birthday celebration from our nation's capital this Saturday, June 14th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on NTD. Coming up, a JetBlue flight landing at Boston's Logan International Airport today rolled off the runway and onto the grass. We're expecting Transportation Secretary's press conference soon, so stay with us.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it.
Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you.
But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me.
Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives.
You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S.
That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You're really gonna like it. I hope so. Yeah.
I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here,